Welcome, everybody. Have you found yourself scrolling your social media accounts and just thinking to yourself, man, everyone, like, they look happier than me, or they look like they have it more together, they're thriving, they're doing more than I am. That's especially true for parents, entrepreneurs, people who are working away 9 to 5 or corporate job, whatever that may look like, that we get to this time of year between Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, where people tend to be posting more on their social media accounts. And when they do, we find ourselves falling into this like comparison trap, right? I like to call it comparison hangover because oftentimes it's from whatever has just happened. So like Halloween just happened, people are seeing costumes, parties, things like that. They start to feel that way. And so what that does though is it's stealing your joy away from you. Like if you're looking at how other people are happy or have things more together than you, they have more things better as a parent or in their business or in their career, and you start to compare yourself to that. Now, I know I've done that. I'm guilty of that because I used to scroll through everyone's holiday posts, from Halloween costumes to like the perfectly decorated homes to like these Thanksgiving tables, and Christmas morning matching pajamas, all that, and none of what I had measured up to that. Each post that I would look at, especially this time of year, it would start to feel like a little paper cut, and not one deep enough to really hurt really badly, ongoing. But together, a lot of those start to form a quiet ache that made me questioning everything. Like I was wondering if I was doing enough as a parent, as a spouse, if what was my meaning in life? Was I falling behind everyone else who just seemed to be thriving and happier and doing all these things? I spent entire months comparing my real messy and exhausted reality of what I was to everyone else's highlight reels that we were seeing. And so that's what we refer to as this comparison hangover. It's the emotional crash that you get after you've been scrolling, the fog of self-doubt, the voice, imposter syndrome whispering to you like something's wrong with you, your life doesn't look like that. Who do you think you are to be in this sort of a place? Whatever that is. And for years, people struggle with this. They go on and on. I did. I believed that comparison meant I was the comparison there meant I was behind. If I just had what they had, I could finally be happy and fulfilled. I thought the problem was me, but here's what changed. It was never about them. It was about me forgetting who I actually was. I had drifted away from my gifts and things that the gifts and superpowers that make me so unique. I was spending all my energy measuring myself against everyone else's, picture perfect thing they had, instead of investing that energy into what actually mattered to me. And so what I want you to take away from this is what I learned. I learned to catch it in the moment. When comparison's trying to hijack my joy, reconnecting that with my gifts and superpowers and using them to create value, that's when things changed. Comparison, it stopped being a threat and started being a signal for me. And there's tons of data, science and stuff out there that backs this up, that fatigue that comes from comparison. Once again, it's not a weakness, it's that disconnection from your strength. Our brain can't compare and contribute at the same time. You may not realize that. And so the holidays, they amplify this comparison, more than any other season from October through January. It's all those perfect moments that people are doing that explode online. But let's talk about how do you stop that hangover for good? How we'll unpack why it isn't proof that you're off, why having that comparison hangover doesn't mean that there's something off. It's just a disconnect from the gifts and superpowers that you have. How your exhaustion doesn't come from that lacking, you're abandoning what you already possess. And then let's talk about how you shift the mental energy away from measuring yourself and towards recognizing what makes you absolutely irreplaceable. Now, I usually like to do this at the top of the video, totally forgot to, but let me just say welcome to the Giver Method channel. If you are new here, my name is Jake, so glad you're able to join me. If you've been here before, watched a previous video, welcome back. What I like to do is I like to teach the principle here, or talk a little bit about how it applies to you as a parent, an entrepreneur, someone working away 9 to 5. And then I'm going to invite you to stick around because I'm going to cover 4 very specific areas and principles, exercises, action items, things like that you could start doing to move past that, move past the comparison hangover and really start to reclaim your joy in who you already are. So let me ask you something. Have you ever scrolled through everyone else's those highlight reels? From the holidays, the costumes or the Thanksgiving gatherings we talked about, perfect Christmas or New Year's celebrations even, and felt that ache whispering to you man, that's not me. I haven't done enough. Maybe you're emotionally drained from comparing your real life to everyone else's really curated moments. Maybe you find yourself mentally just ranking where you stand every time that you open your social media account, and you're measuring yourself behind the scenes, your messiness to their best 30 seconds that they could put on. And if that sounds familiar, listen, once again, nothing wrong with you. It's not a weakness. You're not behind in any sort of way. You're just really tired from trying to live outside of your design. Maybe you're a parent who couldn't afford matching pajamas, and spent their December scrolling through everyone else's, Pinterest perfect photos, wondering like, man, maybe I'm letting my kids down. Or as an entrepreneur who worked through the holidays while everyone else was doing these like ski trips and family vacations, wondering like, man, why does this grind feel like, it feels like I'm grinding while they're getting all these amazing gratitude posts. Or maybe you're an employee who spent the holidays trying to recover from burnout while you feed your looking like you're looking at that year-end review celebrations and like feeling like you're completely invisible. I know that I've been in so many of these scenarios, and it doesn't come down to just like not having the money to do it or whatever. It's truthfully a disconnect with who you are. And the thing is, like, that comparison fatigue, it's that feedback. It's the proof that you've drifted away from those natural gifts, and when you start measuring them against others, you stop investing in what is actually valuable. And so I want to dive deep into that today. Now, I should have properly introduced myself and said, when I said my name is Jake, because my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder and author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. Everything we're going to cover today is going to be grounded in here. Now, there's a link in the description where you can go get access, get a copy for yourself for between $2 to $10, depending on what version you get. It's on sale. So use the link in the description, go to Amazon or pause the video, open your Amazon app, and go get The Giver Method by Jake Talbert. I highly recommend you get a copy for yourself, maybe even for somebody else. There are so many things in here that's grounded in the principles of, I understand that as a parent and entrepreneur, someone working away in that corporate sea of cubicles, because I've been there, that you can't just burn everything down and start from scratch. You can't just move to the woods and go find yourself. And so everything in here and everything we're going to talk about today is grounded in the fact that, man, you got to start building these things right with where you're living right now without overloading you or overwhelming you. So get yourself a copy. Use the link in the description. I promise you, it will change your life. You could be showing up totally different by the holidays and by the new year and have one of the best years in 2026 of your life. Now, like I said, these moments, they've happened to me over time so many times where I stopped, eventually though, I stopped chasing everyone else's version of success and started building from where my gifts, my superpowers were. Man, work started to feel lighter for me. Relationships felt way more real and connected again. And joy stopped being something I chased, and it's just something I created. What I love is people oftentimes ask me like, hey, what's up with you? How are things going? And my favorite answer to give them is, I'm living the best year of my life. And I'm living the best year of my life because of these reasons. Not that anything else is, not that things have changed. I'm not making drastically more money. I don't have way more time. But business hasn't been so much more successful or any, no, I've just started to show up differently. I found joy and am creating joy based off of my contribution that I'm giving to people. So that's exactly what we want to unpack. So we're diving into these principles that we're going to go through, okay? And know that, once again, this isn't about, I'm not talking about, avoiding things or deleting social media or pretending that you don't compare, because we do. It's just about understanding comparison is, like, what is it actually trying to tell you? Because it really is a guide that connects you with those gifts and superpowers, what you value, what your purpose is. And so everything we're talking about is built, when you're feeling tired, when you feel behind, overwhelmed, stressed, parents, entrepreneurs, employees, anybody who's ready to just stop measuring their life against everyone else's and start actually living with. So that's what I said. If you want to, you can always dive deeper. Go get yourself a copy of The Giver Method on Amazon. You can go follow us on all the social media channels, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, under the handle of The Giver Method. Feel free to check out thegivermethod.com. There's all sorts of cool resources, including our surviving or thriving assessment that you can go take. You can get on the newsletter list, things like that. If you're looking for one-on-one support, someone that walk this path that's same as you, wants a guide, to help show you along the way, then check out the one-to-one coaching page down below. Could make sense that we jump on a call and talk about what it would look like to work together one-on-one. And of course, if you host a podcast, have an event stage, any sort of a place where people gather and your audience could benefit from this sort of a message, then let's talk about how we could bring it to them in a very real way. Check out the speaking and podcasting link down below as well. Now, with that, let's just make sure outside of that we do all the YouTube-y things. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, tap that bell for notifications, like the video, and of course, comment anything that's going to land for you along the way. And like I said, this is where I'm going to invite you to stick around. So we're going to cover these 4 very specific principles, how to stop that comparison hangover once and for all. And so the first area is you have to catch comparison in the act before it starts to really tax your joy more and more. So this principle I call the hit pause on the spiral. Because the move is you have to start to notice the moment that, the scroll switches from I'm just looking to I'm ranking my life. Because that's the handoff where joy starts to be taxed more and more. And we're not trying to, we're not banning the comparison forever, because we're human, it's gonna happen. What we're doing is we're building a quick, oh hey, they're aware, that this awareness of having that comparison, like, hey, there you are. Like, I see comparison showing up day to day in this moment. And when you start to have that awareness, it gives you options instead of being stuck on autopilot. And when you can spot your tells, your tics, your things that trigger you, how your body tightens up, the script that your brain is running, how you create these tiny gaps from the post and spiral, like that little gap right there is gold. Parents and entrepreneurs, employees, like, gosh, people, busy folks like us, like, you don't need more willpower. What we need is early warning signs, and a simple reset so we can catch it before it gets worse. And so you're going to build some very systematic practices that help you recognize those triggers. So the first thing is start mapping your body's early alerts. Pay attention to those things for a week. Maybe notice what fires first when comparison starts showing up. Is it like does your chest and your stomach get tight? Do your shoulders tighten up to your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Like, maybe you're breathing shallow or heavier. Like, you lean in, or maybe you start scrolling faster. Whatever it is, like, these physical signs, they're the early alert system that when you notice them, like, comparison is being activated. Just write them down. Like, you're scrolling through, just write them down. Am I comparing right now? Most people discover that the answer is yes, and that their body knew it before their mind did. And so then at that point, you move on to the second thing, which is like, you just have to name the default script. So comparison repeats the same lines. Things like, it's going to tell you everyone else is ahead, or I should be doing that. Why can't I have that life? Man, they seem happier, whatever. Write yours down. When one pops up, label it. Man, that's a script. Write it down. You're not trying to fix it. You're just catching it. These are going to pop up all the time. When they show up, you're going to start to recognize them faster and faster because you started to name what it was. And then the third thing is we actually have to look at that mid-scroll interruption. So this is where we do like a quick 10-second reset. So the second that the cue hits, the script hits, whatever it is, you're going to run through a quick sequence like this. You're going to be like, hey, that's their highlight reel. My reality has meaning. And then name one quiet win from this week. One thing that happened that was good for you this week. And if that's their highlight reel, my reality has meaning. I showed up for my kids last night. I untangled that client issue. I had that real conversation with my partner. Like, whatever it is, repeat this every time it happens for 2 weeks, and you're training your brain of this new route. Like, hey, trigger, recognize, and reframe, and then redirect to real value. It starts to really shift things for you. And then there's the kind of the post-scroll check-in you're going to do, where after you're done scrolling, you're going to take 30 seconds to jot down 4 quick notes. Like, well, what triggered me? How fast did I actually catch it? What script was running, and did I interrupt it? And you're going to see those gaps shrink from minutes to seconds, like that, and that starts becoming less and less, and like, that's true momentum. If you track the progress of that, most people discover that they're catching the comparison earlier and earlier instead of realizing it 20 minutes after they've been spiraling. And here's the thing, like, the power moves, like we're not thinking about like, hey, we're never going to compare, because like I said, that happens. It's just noticing it fast and choosing to do something better. This gives you back control to your attention and your energy and your mood in the exact moment that you usually start to lose it. And once you can catch that in real time, man, every other strategy we're going to talk about is going to land even harder and faster, because you're going to be like, oh, I caught it, now I can go do these other things. That takes us into the second one. Okay, you have to collect evidence that you already are enough. So this, I call this principle like build your proof folder, your proof collection, your proof receipts, whatever you want to call it. Comparison hurts most when you actually forget what you bring to the table. When you're disconnected from your gifts and your superpowers and the value they create, you lose that kind of inner compass that says like, man, I'm good, and I'm doing what I can and what I'm supposed to here. When that goes away, man, other people's highlight reels start coming up, you start using your measuring stick like that as a measuring stick, like, man, you lose track of who you are quickly. So the proof folder, it changes it. What it basically does is it helps you go through your own life, digging up like the value, the quieter moments where you prove your value along the way. Like, your gifts don't show up in those perfect photos all the time. They show up in the ways when you listen, when you solve, the way you show up when it counts the most for people. Like, you've been creating value all along. Just gotta start collecting the receipts and like the tracking of it now, because here's the thing, you are the only person that has your combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences, which means you are the only person who can actually create the type of value you can create for other people. And when you start to realize that, things will shift. And when you start noticing it and recording it, things start to come alive. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you actually start to put those, like, find that value and build that folder. And so the first thing is, like, you think about 3 alive moments where I want you to just grab a notebook or whatever, open up your notes app, and write down 3 moments in the past year when you felt the most yourself. And not vague stuff, like get specific. Maybe it was Tuesday morning when you helped your kids finally get their fractions, and you saw that their face like lit up. Or maybe you solved that messy work problem that no one else could crack. Or you listened to the friend and you're the only, like they're basically like, you're the only one that listens and understands what I'm saying. Whatever those things are, write down, like, what were you doing? Which of your strengths were you using and how it felt? Like, these moments are like a gift signature for you. They keep them close. Like, they're proof that you're already contributing in ways that matter to others. And these moments contain, that pattern that just naturally creates value for others. When you write these down, especially 3 of them, keep it accessible. So when comparison starts to whisper, like any sort of those, like, you're not enough, or why aren't you doing what they're doing? Like, you've got the concrete evidence that you are enough, that you've been doing these great things. Like, you've got this well of value that you've created, and the more you track that over time, the better it's going to be. And then that takes us into the second part of this, which is like, the quiet value log. So for the next 2 weeks, you write down one small way, like one small moment each day where maybe you made a difference, and make it something real or but probably invisible to the outside world. You encourage that coworker who was doubting themselves. You made dinner, for your sick neighbor. You stayed patient when your toddler melted down. Like, you said hi with a smile to someone just to cheer up their day. Like, whatever it is, no filters, no hashtags, just truth. Just put them down, whatever it is. After 2 weeks, read the list and look for patterns. Man, there's a thread of your contribution running through every part of your life. That's creating value. Then you got to look for your gift and impact connection. Like, with your top 3 natural strengths, the things that you show up again and again with, like, think of real world examples of how each one created impact. Like, hey, my ability to simplify things helped my team finally move forward. My calm helped my teenager open up more. My creativity made space, for me to feel peaceful again, whatever. Like, once again, your proof folder, it's that concrete evidence of your gifts at work in real life. You just have to document it and then revisit it when comparison starts to hit. Because it's hard to feel behind when you're staring at a list of ways that you've already made a difference and that you could go make a difference for people today. Comparison, like I said, it can't survive when that evidence exists, because like, you've got the proof of your impact. You stop needing someone else's highlight reel to feel like you're enough. That creates all sorts of clarity. The noise starts to fade out that you see when comparison's sticking in. The shame quiets. Your joy starts to come back online, and it's all about the joy and fulfillment that you can experience. Now, the third area that, principle that I want to focus on, using the things that sting the most to show you what matters. This is how you basically, the principal idea is like turning your comparison into clarity. So instead of trying to stop comparing, start asking in those moments, what are, what's that comparison trying to tell you? That little sting that, when you see someone else's family vacation, that end of year win, that perfectly decorated home, whatever, like, it's not proof you're behind. It's just a signal from your nervous system saying, hey, something I care about is getting ignored. And comparison, once again, it's not always the villain. It can be a great mirror. It helps you like reflect on the gaps of, what you value, what you're actually living for, your purpose. Like, the goal isn't to shame yourself into feeling it. Like, just start to get curious enough to decode it. And so once again, how do you create some practices around that? So first thing is like, map the moment. If you keep a note app on your phone titled like, what's this really about? And every time comparison hits, jot down maybe 3 things. Like, okay, number 1, what triggered me? I guess it was the photo of their family trip. It was the whatever. The second thing to jot down is like, what thought ran through my head? Man, they have time for adventure and I'm stuck working. They've got it all together, like whatever. The third thing is going to be, what value does this point to? Is it freedom? Is it family time? Is it rest? Is it whatever? Like this, basically you can end with this sort of a statement. Like, this comparison shows me that I value blank, freedom, family time, whatever. And I'm not honoring that right now. Once again, you're not judging yourself, you're just collecting those clues. That's going to happen so much, especially during the holiday season. So don't judge yourself for comparing. Use that as your data mine. And then now let's look for the patterns. Where if you spend 2 weeks tracking those sort of things, review that entire list and look for the patterns. Do the same values. Keep showing up repeatedly. And most people are going to discover that there's probably 3 to 5 values driving all their comparison. Are you comparing financial success or family connection or freedom, rest, adventure, creativity, impact, appearance, relation, like whatever? Circle the values that appear the most frequently to you. Now, those aren't random. They're just revealing what actually matters beneath the noise. That way when comparison starts, coming in, like, man, it's not lying to me. It's just showing me what I care about that maybe I'm not prioritizing. And so when you write those top 3 to 5 values, hey, based on my comparison patterns, I can tell that I deeply value whatever, connection, freedom, creativity, rest, impact, whatever yours are. And then next, let's look for the gap. We're going to look for like, hey, okay, well, where am I honoring these values and where am I abandoning them? Maybe you value connection, but you're half present every evening with your phone in your hand. Maybe you value creativity, but you haven't touched a guitar or the notebook or the paintbrush in months. Maybe you value rest, but you're burning the late night candle, like you're working too late, you're grinding. Or gosh, these are the places where the comparison becomes gold, because it just reveals what's missing. Once again, it's not to shame you, it's just to kind of help recalibrate you a little bit. And then, write the gap that's there, for each value. And it's gold because comparison, like, just reveals exactly what you need to shift in your life. And so then we start to look, how do we close that gap? Or we're going to pick one small action per value. For connection, maybe it's one phone-free hour after dinner. For creativity, maybe 30 minutes this week, you're just going to do the thing that you've been putting off. For rest, one, like, no, hey, I'm going to protect this time so no one can get in there. Once again, whatever it is, like, they don't have to be dramatic. They just need to be yours. You're building a life that matches your actual values. And once again, it doesn't want to find the thing that fits your own life. Comparison showed you what matters. Now let's honor it. And then check back in after 30 days and notice how the same points that used to trigger you maybe barely register. Once again, it's not luck, it's alignment. That's why I want people to start doing these things now, so that as we get through Thanksgiving and into the Christmas season, they're already past this. When you're living by your own values, you don't need to compare. Comparison, was never the problem. It's the message underneath that matters. It's the ache you feel from scrolling through someone else's wins. It's your values calling back and being like, hey, remember me? It's your gifts and superpowers being like, guys, I'm right here. You can use me anytime you want. When you start to move past that, you're going to start to lift that hangover, because you're finally living with more clarity, not comparison. And then that takes us to the fourth and final area. You can't compare when you're contributing. And so the fourth thing is, you build immunity through using your gifts and superpowers. You can't beat it with willpower. You cannot beat comparison with just willpower. You crowd it out with using your purpose. Your brain literally, it can't run comparison programming and contribution programming at the same time. When you're using your gifts, your superpowers to make a difference, there's no mental space left to wonder how you stack up. The fix isn't forcing yourself to stop scrolling. It's filling your life with as much meaning that comparison becomes the background noise. When you're in contribution mode, you stop thinking about who's ahead or behind, and you're just too busy showing up as your natural you. And so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about this from this is going to be a gift activation challenge. We're going to pick your 3 top natural gifts or superpowers, the things that just happen when you're at your best. Maybe your brain can calm the chaos. You see the connections people miss. You encourage people when they need the most, whatever it is. And now for 1 week, use each of those gifts intentionally at least once. Once again, not for credit, not for a post, but just because it feels right. After each one, write a single sentence. I used my gift of blank to blank for blank. I used my gift of simplifying complex to help these people do this thing for this reason, and I felt this way. Once again, that's your proof. You'll notice that those moments feel better than any other like or comment ever could. Most people discover these moments create such deep satisfaction, in their lives, that that's your nervous system showing you what real fulfillment feels like. Contribution, not comparison. Next thing, track your energy. For 2 weeks, you compare 2 things. How do I feel after 20 minutes of the scroll, versus how do I feel when I was able to use my gifts or superpowers to help someone? Give each one a quick 1 to 10 rating. How's my energy, my mood, my self-worth? What you're going to see is going to be super obvious. Scrolling drains you, right? When you contribute in any sort of way, it's going to fill you up. That's your nervous system telling you what's real. Be ruthless, be honest. So once again, scrolling and comparing, energy crashes, mood dips, self-worth plummets, feel dependent on others, whatever. When you're using your gift, energy's rising, moods lift, self-worth strengthens. I've got evidence of impact. Once again, your body's giving you the data that fills you. Comparison's going to drain you. Contribution's always going to energize you. In 2 weeks, you're going to start to know such an amazing difference. And then the third thing is I encourage you to start creating comparison-free zones where you pick moments in your day to protect from comparison and that you replace with contribution. So before you check your phone in the morning, think about setting some intentions of how can I use my gifts today? Maybe when you're eating, you're having sort of a meal time, no screens. Just how can I use my gift of presence in this moment? In the evening, write down one way that you used a gift that day. In the weekend, do something that lights you up, you create, you help, you connect, you build something, whatever. These simple swaps, they rewire your day, like from consumption to contribution. And if you do that for 10, 20, 30 days and watch how you feel. After like a month, how many comparison-free zones did you protect? Like, how did your overall comparison hangover change? Most people discover that when they do this, they fill formerly scroll-filled time with gift deployment, and new opportunities just started to arise for them. And then that's where you do the immunity test, which is like the fun part. After using one of your gifts, then go scroll your feed and realize that the same posts that used to sting barely register. Because once you're centered on contribution, other people's wins feel like proof of possibility, not competition. You're playing a different game now. One where fulfillment wins every time. Like, comparison dies when you start living from this place of your gifts. When you're operating from contribution, like, energy is going to go up, confidence goes up, and the noise of other people's highlight reels fades. You don't escape comparison by trying to care less. You just outgrow it by living from what truly matters more. And so here's what I want to take away from today. Like, comparison isn't proof you're behind. Once again, it's just a sign that you've drifted away from those natural gifts and superpowers. That exhaustion, overwhelm, burnout, anxiety, frustration that you've been feeling, it's not because you don't have what everyone else has. It's because you've been spending so much energy measuring yourself instead of using what you already possess. And the good news is, like, you can come back from that starting today. Pick one thing we talked about. Pick one of the places we talked about. Catch yourself mid-scroll with that, trigger interrupt. Create your proof folder. What's the clarity conversion? How do you activate your gifts? Any of sort of those, whatever it is, it doesn't matter which one you pick, just start somewhere. Because this isn't about fixing yourself, it's about remembering yourself. You don't have to go delete social media or pretend like comparison never happens, because it does. You just learn what it's trying to tell you. Reconnect with the quiet value you're already creating and shift from competition into that contribution mode. Now, if you want to dive deeper into this, like I said, there's all sorts of things we can go into, but that's where you can go get yourself a copy of the GIVER Method using the link in the description, or going to Amazon, looking up the GIVER Method by Jake Talbert. Go get yourself a copy. Go to thegivermethod.com, get on our newsletter list, go sign up for the survival assessment or whatever. Like, the GIVER Map is basically your roadmap to uncover your gifts and activate your strengths and build a life that actually fits you. Now, if you want help walking through this personally, then check out the one-on-one coaching link below. See if it makes sense for you to book a call. And if you have a podcast, lead a team, run an event, stage, whatever, and your people need this sort of a message, then let's bring it to them. You'll find a link down below for that as well. And of course, all the YouTube things, please hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, like the video, and of course, comment what hit home for you today, because I read every single one of them so I can continue to enhance the content as we go. I just want you to remember this though. Your worth doesn't live in an Instagram grid. It lives in moments no one sees. When you're using those gifts to make someone else's world a little better. Comparison was never out to destroy you. It's just been trying to point you back to what matters most to you, your gifts, your values, your joy. So catch the trigger, reconnect with those gifts, find the clarity that the comparison's giving you, and start to use your strengths to serve. You're the only person with your combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences, which means you're the only person who can make the impact that you can make in the world right now. And there are people waiting for you to realize that. Promise you that when you do, the universe always finds ways to pay you back, gives you opportunities that come down to you. Like, when you do this, like, comparison is just going to lose its grip, not because you're not caring, but because you're finally remembering who you actually are. So hopefully you've been able to take some great value away from this video. Check out the other videos on the channel. Check us out at thegivermethod.com. Follow us on social media, and we will hopefully catch you in one of our next videos. Have a great rest of your day.